What's up guys, welcome to the Far Side. Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 1 was just released and we're here to break it down. I am a massive Star Wars fan from the OG trilogy to the prequel movies. I'm not really a fan of the sequel trilogy altogether, but I do like The Mandalorian. It's a step in the right direction for Star Wars and continues with pretty good storytelling so far. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are making great content for Star Wars and I'm all for it. Now having said that, I'll go and cover the entire season of The Mandalorian and breaking down each episode as they release. This is my breakdown for episode 1. We are 3 seasons in, so there are tons to talk about. If you haven't watched the Book of Boba Fett, and I don't blame you, you might be at a loss as to why Mando and Grogu are back together. Just a brief background for those of you who didn't know, I'll set a timestamp so you can go ahead with the breakdown. So by the end of season 2, Luke Skywalker saved Grogu and Djin and the rest of the team and have since been training Grogu in the ways of the Force. We do see a little bit of that training in the Book of Boba Fett, and towards the end of that he was made to choose between, a lightsaber and an armor, signifying of course the Jedi and the Mandalorian paths respectively. The tiny lightsaber once belonged to Jedi Master Yoda. The armor was created by the armorer by the request of Djin, forged from his Beskar spear. Grogu of course chose the armor, and by the finale they have been reunited. Jon Favreau also mentioned before the show that a little bit of time has passed since the events of the Book of Boba Fett and the start of Mandalorian Season 3. We later find out that it has been 2 years since both events, so I'm kind of curious how it picks up. So moving on to episode 1, the Apostate, who of course is referring to Djarin. Having revealed his face to Grogu, he is no longer considered a Mandalorian, and since he belongs to the Children of the Watch, who are practitioners of the Way of Mandalore, which states that a Mandalorian cannot remove his helmet in front of any sentient being or have his helmet removed by force. This is a very strict religious code that not all Mandalorians follow. The mainstream Mandalorians, like those that can just remove their helmets just fine, showing their faces. This ancient religion has fallen out of recent memory for Mandalorian society, aside from those few clans like the tribe who continue the way. But there seems to be an animosity between new Mandalorians and practitioners of the Way. Bo-katan, for example, sees these zealots as nothing more than cultists. On the other hand, the Children of the Watch does not consider new Mandalorians as Mandalorians at all. This may play out into something bigger later in the series. The very first scene of the episode, we see the armor crafting Beskar into a new Mandalorian helmet, light blue with a trim of silver. There are a lot of different Mandalorian helmets here depending on their preferences and sometimes depending on their social status. There really isn't a standard color, but all of them kind of resembles a Spartan helmet, which makes sense since the warlike Mandalorians hold prowess in battle above all else, just like the Spartans. The armor walks out into the side of a body of water where all the other Mandalorians are arrayed in ceremony. So we're witnessing a foundling being inducted into the Children of the Watch. Here the youngling himself is played by Wesley Kimmel, credited as Ragnar. This kid strikes me as someone important. For one, his colors are the same as Paz Vizla, leading me to believe they might be of the same lineage. Paz Vizla is a direct descendant of Har Vizla, the first Mandalorian Jedi and creator of the Darksaber. Some of the Mandalorians are born into the culture, but there are other foundlings like Djin that are adopted into the tribe. Also, Paz Vizla seems to be personally connected. Some of the shots are deliberate in this. He even saves him without any concern for his own well-being. Good thing Mando has impeccable timing, so Paz has traded blows with Mando before, but they've often set aside their differences to defeat a common enemy, but seems he never forgot his lineage. Also, naming the kid Ragnar, the Viking hero of legend, there might be parallels there worth watching out for. If this theory turns out to be true, then Ragnar would be the heir to the Darksaber and possible contender for both Djin and Bo-katan Kryze, who we'll also see later in the episode. The ceremony is interrupted when a huge creature appears out of the water. I was getting Krayt Dragon vibes from season 2 episode 1 in Tatooine, but looks way different, kind of prehistoric crocodile. It even moves like one when it twists around its back, throwing all kinds of Mandalorians into the water. All the Mandalorians shoot at it with no effect, like its hide is really thick, even detonators, even Paz's heavy blaster fire can't affect it. As I mentioned just in time, Mando comes in on his custom N1 Starfighter and blasts the creature. A well-placed shot in its underbelly ultimately takes care of it, and the Mandalorians look at the new arrivals. If you're wondering, by the way, Mando's new N1 Starfighter was made with the help of Peli Motto over at Mos Eisley, based off of a Nubian design, the yellow ones from the prequel trilogy to be specific. I know it's a little dorky, but I love that design and take takes me back to the Phantom Menace. Inside the lair, Djin confronts the armorer, who tells him you are no longer a Mandalorian. If you remember, Djin tells her this in the Book of Boba Fett instead of lying about it like a normal person. This goes to show how honorable Djin is as a character and how strict the code is for the way. I think this is necessary for them to preserve their way of life as well. There are so few Mandalorians left in the galaxy ever since the Empire has purged Mandalore, scattering them across the stars. Their numbers have gone smaller and smaller over time. The Mandalorians have found themselves as bounty hunters and mercenaries in order to survive, only it doesn't help all that much now, does it? The armor tells Djin that redemption is impossible now since the destruction of Mandalore, the homeworld of the Mandalorians. It is believed that the world has since been poisoned by radiation by the Empire, therefore he cannot bathe in the waters on the mines of Mandalore, which is the only deed that can redeem him and become a Mandalorian once again. It hasn't been explored before in any of the shows, only that the mines were the source of Beskar all those years ago, and the reason why, like the Mandalorians themselves, Beskar is very rare. Djin shows her a piece of the crystal from Mandalore he got from Jawas, who got it from a traveler who claims to have been in Mandalore. The armor states that the writing in it is indeed Mandalorian and that the crystallization of Mandalore's surface was caused by fusion rays from all the bombing from the Night of 1,000 Tears, and this was a piece of it. This makes me think how cool this planet will look with its surface completely covered in crystals, and if this is really irradiated, maybe the Empire perpetuates this lie of radiation to ward off any Mandalorian coming back to the planet. Maybe the Empire is mining Beskar, but if it is poisoned, then I'd be curious how Mando will circumvent that. So Mando has this renewed passion for completing his mission as he got confirmation that if he was able to bathe in the waters, then he'd be welcomed back as a Mandalorian. Right after we see Mando and Grogu leave for Navarro 7, the N1 Starfighter streaks within the hyperspace lane when Grogu sees massive shapes just beyond it. These are the Purrgil, a spacefaring race of animals that have been shown in Star Wars Rebels, so there might be connections there that could potentially pay off within the season or some other show. We're not sure as of the moment. So Djin arrives at a brand new Navarro 7, a trade hub for the sector, and it's very prosperous. They're greeted by Greef Karga, the self-proclaimed High Magistrate of Navarro. We get a good look of the prosperous town, and we also get to see some of the food there as well. Thank God no blue milk. It's grilled womp rats to exotic alien vegetables from every corner of the Outer Rim territories. If you look closely, there's also Kowakian monkey lizards. As you remember from Jabba's palace, one of these named Salacious B. Crumb was in Return of the Jedi. Public Band is playing as protocol droids assisting travelers and tourists. Overall, this looks pretty awesome. I gotta say, they really tried to make this show look and feel like Star Wars. Pretty sweet deal for Greef Karga as we see a statue of IG-11 at the center of town. Atop a pile of Imperial helmets, High Magistrate Karga meets Din and Grogu and they go to his office. I do like the added touch of his cape being carried by two small droids just following him around. Very regal. Grogu then sits and spins on what I assume to be Greef's chair. He's come a long way in terms of his powers since the earlier seasons. He seems more in tune with it since he's been training with Luke for 2 years now, it seems, according to Jon Favreau, although it was difficult to tell how long. Djin and Karga catch up on times, and we learned that Navarro has become a major hub for the Hydian Way, which is a busy hyperspace lane in the Outer Rim, allowing Navarro 7 to benefit from all the traffic from one place to another. Now they went to see a group of pirates that want to enter a school led by a Nikto pirate named Vane. He wants to get in because it used to be a saloon or cantina. Being pirates and not agreeable, Greef Karga fails to defuse the situation and they come to a standoff. Greef shoots Vane's blaster hand before he can fire, then Djin takes the rest as they try to shoot back, except for Vane to act as a messenger to his captain Gorian Shard. If you feel like this was a very Western inspired encounter, it is. Just like George was inspired by spaghetti westerns, the show is basically a space western from the music to the lone gunman vibe of Mando, especially in the first season. So it's nice to see showrunners Dave and John lean into it a little bit more in this episode. Now Greef tells Mando that he needs a marshal or a ranger to look after the place when he asks about Cara Dune, to which he answers she was promoted to special forces after taking in Moff Gideon. Personally, I would have loved love to see Gina Carano as a character once again. We learn further that Moff Gideon is facing charges on a New Republic War Tribunal. Hope we see the New Republic inner workings. Maybe the system doesn't work as much as they'd like, and somehow Moff Gideon gets off the hook because of some connections within the tribunal. So Mando says he needs a droid to help him navigate the ruins of Mandalore, and he wants it to be IG-11. Greef says there's so little of him left and it would be a near impossible task to restore the old assassin droid, but Mando is very adamant. So he hooks IG to some power and hotwires him back. And we see that Djin has some really handy skills with droid repair because Greef and his people wasn't able to do that in the first place. But unfortunately, IG reverts to his bounty hunter protocols and attacks Grogu. Mando shoots at IG, but it seems the droid's shell is impervious to blaster fire and keeps on coming for Baby Yoda until Greef's protocol droid smashes its head with a bust, and then they bring the droid to the Anzellans AKA Babu Frik species from the Rise of Skywalker. I really dug the practical animatronics on them, really Star Wars, but it also kind of reminds me of the Men in Black worms a little bit, but much more tiny. Grogu's finding them fascinating as well, and he even tries to take one for himself. Unfortunately, IG-11 needs a new memory circuit to function again, which it turns out is really hard to find. Really happy they're bringing him back. He has the original trilogy vibes to him because of IG-88 in Empire Strikes Back. Also, Mando having little side missions like this, getting droid parts or taking care of a disturbance, has that nice RPG element to it, which plays really well with the character. But the absolute best thing about this episode is when he leaves Navarro, a group of pirate fighters led by Vane, leading to a really awesome space battle, reminding us of the good old days when Star Wars have awesome space action. Visually reminds me of the prequels, maybe because of the N1 Starfighter, especially seeing it spin like in episode 1, Phantom Menace with Anakin. That's a good trick scene. But the asteroid sequence with these huge chunks of rock flying around, ships crashing into them, has that Empire Millennium Falcon moment to it that really felt like Star Wars once again. And we get to see the capabilities of the N1 Starfighter. Mando takes advantage of its maneuverability and speed, taking the pirates by surprise, weaving in and out of the field until Vane is the only one left. The chase ends when Vane leads Mando to a dreadnought type ship with huge guns. The Mandalorian really leans into the Pirates of the Caribbean vibes here as we are introduced to Pirate King Gorian Shard, which looks like Swamp Thing made a baby with Bill Nye, Davy Jones, even a close look colonial. Mando punches his thrusters to escape, saying to Grogu, "Never trust a pirate." Reaching their last destination in the episode, Mando and Grogu heads to the planet Kalevala, located in the Mandalore system, home planet of Clan Kryze. Mando's N1 lands on a platform of a very large but very empty Mandalorian castle, except for a protocol droid welcoming him to the castle. Bo-katan Kryze sits back in her throne, very alone, kicking back. Behind her is probably an ancient battle immortalized in stone. Bo-katan is played by Katie Sackhoff. Looks very similar to her animated version as well. It might be her wig, as I see it was changed since we last saw her in season 2. We learned that she lost all her followers when she returned without the Darksaber, even her Night Owls. The Night Owls were an elite all-female Mandalorian commando unit. You can kind of tell them apart with their helmet shaped like an owl. Bo-katan herself joined a radical Mandalorian terrorist group called Death Watch. In opposition to her sister Duchess Satine, wanted a more peaceful path for her people. The Night Owls joined her as part of Death Watch. Aside from their helmets, which have that distinct characterization, most of their armor and weapons are typically same as with the other Death Watch Mandalorians. After the formation of the Empire, she refused to follow the new Galactic Emperor Palpatine, so she lost her position as regent, and another clan took her place. With the Imperial occupation on Mandalore came yet another civil war that lasted for years. It wasn't until Bo-katan met Ursa and Sabine Wren who gave the Night Owl leader the Darksaber, which is an ancient lightsaber created by the first Mandalorian Jedi. The weapon became a symbol of leadership amongst their people, a symbol for the clans to be united under. They effectively declare her as worthy of being the new Mandalore, leader of all Mandalorians, but apparently when she lost it, she also lost all respect from her people. She goes on to blame the Children of the Watch and all other zealots for splintering their people. She's one of those mainstream Mandalorians who can take their helmets off, having a more or less loose interpretation of what it means to be a Mandalorian, but without those traditions, I think it lessens their identity a little bit because they revert to becoming common thugs and mercenaries as opposed to a honor-centric group of warriors, at least in my opinion. So obviously she sees Mando's mission of redemption and bathing in the water as a fool's mission, saying it's just superstition and that all it was ever good for was it supplied them with Beskar in the good old days. This also goes to show the differences of these different factions within the Mandalorian society. She tells Mando that the waters are beneath the civic center of Sundari, and Mando goes on his way. Now, there might be something to the way she says goodbye, like she knows something that she isn't telling him, or she really thinks the whole planet is poisoned and irradiated, that there's no way for him to get out of it alive. In any case, I think bo-katan is biding her time, just waiting for an opportunity. She does low-key ask him about the Darksaber. For sure, she has ulterior motives here as well. She knows she can't take the Darksaber by force in a duel, but should something happen to Djin, then she can then claim the Darksaber and rule the people of Mandalore. And I like how we get into the Mandalorian politics. Jon Favreau did mention there will be a turning point in their society, and we get to explore that this season. Whatever her motives, we'll definitely find out in the upcoming episodes. Now, Mando might go on a side mission to get the memory circuit for IG-11 before going to Mandalore. He did mention he needs him for the main mission, so a small chance we will see the planet in episode 2. Maybe towards the end he arrives and we get a sneak peek on what's really going on. Maybe the planet is not really poisoned, maybe just a part, or might turn out to be completely false. My bet is that there's a secret Imperial remnant base on the planet and they perpetuate the lie to avoid detection. Might turn out to be a secret cloning facility. The other shows have been leaning in on cloning recently, plus Grogu has been a target experiment, so some story elements of that might be explored for this season. Anyway, that's just my theory for the upcoming episodes for the season. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching this breakdown. Also, comment down below any theories you have for the season. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel out. Take care out there and see you on the next one.